Good morning, viewers. It's JannLee. I'm here to cover my recent match against allyouneedisluft. This is part of the Crazy House World Championships. This is the candidates round. This is my last match of the candidates. It's the 7th match I need to play, and it is a critical match at the moment. With me being on 4 out of 6, this was a critical game because there's a number of us chasing the second position, and taking second position allows you to qualify for the final. Okay, so we're in the opening here. I prepared quite heavily for allyouneedisluft, and just like the other games and my other opponents, he's also managed to avoid my preparation largely. So here he's gone for the perk setup. This isn't unfamiliar to me, but knight a5 is something new. I didn't figure it was that great. I thought it put the knight on a worse square, and then my bishop still came to d3. It's developed nicely. So here, if castles, I'm thinking queen d2. I'm going to castle myself. There's some easy plans. Here I think he's going to play a6 b5, so I'm just preventing him from breaking open the position. And, I went into this game wanting to come out of the blocks quickly, play quick in the opening, make sure time wasn't an issue. Allyouneedisluft is a very tough player, very good strategic player, very good in the opening. He's careful with his move orders. So here, he's thinking a fair bit. And knight d7, which appears very passive. And I wasn't quite sure what his plan was until later. I thought he was going for an e5 push. And here I should probably just castle quite quickly. And so both of us in unfamiliar territory. Now knight b6, and I can see he's trying to play for knight c4. I've pretty quickly moved queen e2 to cover that off. And then I realised my queen wants to be on d2 or c1. Maybe I could have defended with b3 earlier instead of queen e2. That would have saved the tempo. Perhaps he has some c5 push. But then even after dc and c takes b6, it's not great. So maybe I should just play b3 and ask the question of black what he's doing with his two knights on the queen side. He's now castled king side. And here I'm preparing b4. So now with the knight going back to c6, knight c4 is no longer a threat, so I aim my queen at h6. And then I'm looking to attack on that side. Now knight e2, I'm moving over to the king side. Honestly, I've just blundered the pawn on a4, and it's right for him to take it because there's nothing immediate. And in this sort of position, it's actually quite critical because there's not much to play for on the board. This pawn actually can change the fortunes. I think here I should probably play c3, just give more defense to d4. Here I'm probably just kicking myself that I've let the pawn go on a4 because against allyouneedisluft, this is the small kind of edge that he's looking to start with, and then he can punish you with it. So here's this is bad practical play, just twiddling thumbs. I think pawn at g4 is good here. I think he should have taken that pawn and proceed with it. And he's got pressure on d4. So I think c3 would have been a better move than knight g3. And here I'm letting the clock go as well. So losing the pawn's not really the end of the world. You should just keep moving. But yeah, I think it's waking up in the morning as well and having a bit of a surprise. So here I just try to get active, and it's questionable if I'm making more weaknesses on my king side that I'm creating. I thought maybe instead of e takes a4, you could have played knight at c4 and then taken the bishop on e3 and really try to punish me on the dark squares. So I don't feel I'm playing well here. I'm now just trying to make something on the light squares. He should try to hit me on the dark squares. So yeah, not off to a great start here. Didn't mind that he had played a slow passive opening on the queen side, but then I've just kind of played into his hands really. We're both down to less than a minute here. I'm just trying to play well on the clock as well. Give myself some practical chances. Alright, so he's basically trying to starve me of having any pawns. That's what bishop at d4 was about. He's making me consume a pawn on f2. And rook at b1 here is making me consume another piece. And knight at e6 is to create a weakness on g6. So now I'm actually getting in somewhere. I thought maybe he could have played bishop takes e6 instead of f takes e6. This opens up his king. It gives me a rook to play with. And I now have something to fight for here, and the rook and the pawns are quite dangerous. So here I'm feeling I've got some practical chances. I'm a pawn short. I was thinking of queen takes g5 here. And looks like I went for it. Now, if he goes rook f1 and I play bishop takes f1, he's got knight at f3 check. So I saw that and I'm trying to avoid getting checked. Unfortunately, I can't run up with king e2 because of knight at c3 check. That's quite dangerous. So he does get his knight in, but now I get some checks. So while knight g5 covers the back, it doesn't cover g8. And here I must have mate somewhere. I thought I saw it, and then I was a pawn short, but even with the two knights, there should have been enough. So even here, yeah, queen g6. I should play queen f7 check, and then there's knight at g6 and knight at f8. Doesn't matter what move order he plays with, king h8 or king h7. So that was a mate miss there, and now I've blundered the mate, so I'm lost on the board, but take it on time. So pretty horrible first game from myself. And it already kind of flagged to me a signal that Luft isn't going to play his regular opening. So straight away, knight c3. I don't normally see that move from him. So I'd prepared for some more mainstream lines, but he clearly avoided them. But okay, he's played another passive opening. So I figured he was going to play some passive openings and look to outplay me strategically. Here he's got this kind of e3, d3 setup, and I'm just being cautious of a push on e4 at some stage. Sometimes there's a pawn sacrifice there, and the d file opens up, and d6 can be a little bit of a hole. So I'm just keeping an eye out for that. So for example, if he castles bishop d6 there, yeah, here he's gone queen e2, and he's still pushing for e4. But I'm happy here. I've got a nice big center. I haven't given away anything for it. So here I'm looking to not push the center just yet, just castle, get the king in the corner first. And here it comes. So he makes the push. And I didn't mind it actually. I expected he'd play ED and I'd get bishop c3. I thought I'd get some initiative. And then there's the next sequence of moves here. I thought he should play BC. I was going to play knight takes d5. Then I'm looking at knight at f4, so I'm pretty happy. Not too surprised he played d takes c6 as well. That was in the set, but I figured, well, I'm going to get my knights in. And I figured if he played queen h3, I was going to play bishop takes b2, pawn at g4, and then his queen is in a tough spot because it's going to get forked by the knights, most likely. Well, yeah, queen e3 is an escape square, but I can play pawn at g4, queen e3, b takes c6. I've got plenty of material heading up towards his king. Now here I'm not sure I played the next move correctly. He's very accurate with his piece placement. Queen e3 is a nice move because maybe I should play knight at f5. That's simple enough. But he got me to play knight g4, and now queen h3 is a better option because the knight is actually a target on g4. Before that, knight was on f6, and I could play pawn at g4. So it kind of took the wind out of my sails a bit. I don't know if knight g4 was the right move. Maybe knight at f5 was more appropriate, and then play moves like bishop takes b2, b takes c6. So I'm down a couple pawns on material, and Here, if he plays queen h4, I want to play knight takes g2 and try to make some holes, but I don't really have the right pieces to hit his queen. Now he's played queen g3, and this is where I had to take a lot of time to think where I'm going. Like, he's making my knight on g4 look a little bit out of place. I can't play knight h5 because I lose that knight on g4. bc is helping him because he plays bishop takes c6. He gets to defend his pawn on g2. And he's got an army of pieces waiting on the side. If I don't make something happen quickly, I'm heading backwards. So he's just sidestepped my attacks on his queen quite nicely here. And again, I'm spending too much time on the clock. So I think I decide knight h5 in the end, just for a quick move. I'm thinking queen h4, h6. He's played queen f3. And bishop at e4 here is an accurate move because it allows white to still defend the pawn on c6. So the other bishop from a4 is useful. And yeah, now I don't really have all that much attack, so I try to go for it. With knight takes h2, try to get the diagonal pieces in. Now here, yeah, maybe after pawn g3, knight takes g3 is in order. And here he plays very accurately. This is his time where he decides, okay, it's time to counter-attack. Knight at f5 is going for pawn at e7, pawn at h6. I've probably not thought enough on this, but he just hits me on the back rank continuously, and it's all over. I can't get checks in. So he's wrapping it up very nicely here. Now here I thought I was laying a trap with king g7. I think if he plays queen takes f7 by getting king h6, maybe there's still a mate there. But oh yeah, of course. I think bishop at g7, knight takes g7, queen takes f6 is mate anyway. So look, it's pretty hopeless here. Pawn at g5 just defends the knight on h6, threatening queen takes f7. And now rook at g8 mates. So look, a nice game. He's just held out long enough. He's captured all the material, and at just the right point, he's counterattacked with knight at f5. So we go to 1-1 here, and I don't feel I'm actually playing all that well. I mean, his strategy's working. He just got some openings that weren't prepared for, and he's just outplayed me in the first two matches. So the first one I got some attack back, and I missed a mate. But not feeling great at the moment. This wasn't the start I was looking for. Now Luft would know knight e4, and he would know that's a pet opening of mine, and that strategically white gets to push black slowly. So I figure he purposely avoided that with knight g4. And so yeah, there's other options for white. Knight f3 is also okay. Black now gets the 2 pawns on e5. But I thought d5 would be hanging. So yeah, here I'm actually not sure what is best here. Maybe it's knight e4, but I thought queen d5 was going to be a bit annoying. And now with knight e5, I get queen takes d4. So a6 is an accurate move. And maybe here I should just play knight takes c7 and knight f3 and hit the pawn on d4. That might be a better way of going forward. So here black's got his piece for the pawn back, and I felt knight f3, queen d1, bishop takes d1, queen at e4. So, he's getting the kind of position he wants to play. He's avoiding my opening prep, and he's doing well. I made a practical decision here to allow the sacrifice of a few pawns to develop quickly, but I don't know it's sound, because if all I'm doing is developing and castling in the corner, he's going to have pawn at h3 later on, and that's exactly what he did. So yeah, not thrilled with my play so far. So I thought he'd play queen takes b2 here. He's probably mindful of the d7 square and not getting too greedy. But I thought it was okay. Queen takes b2. And then after castles, you could consolidate. He decided queen d6. So this actually makes things a little bit sharp now, because when I castle, he's basically telling me I'm going to play pawn at h3 and I'm going to trade queens off and then attack your king side. If I play pawn at d5, he's got knight b4. So I really like the way he's playing. He's playing a good game so far. He's picked up a pawn. He's got no weaknesses on his king side. And I think this was the flavour of the game. It wasn't your typical crazy house match. It was very strategical. Very much avoid opening knowledge, try to maneuver strategically, outplay each other. So I'm expecting pawn at h3 here, and I'm trying to hatch a plan to get the bishop off the diagonal so I can try to play pawn at d7. And it's risky because if I don't calculate it right, he ends up getting the attack on my king. So even now, I'm not sure if this was right. But pawn at g2 to try to entice bishop takes g2 and then get pawn at d7 check in, knight at e5 check. So he's certainly having a think about it here. And there's no bluffing a player like Luft. He'll go and check out the tactics, and if his king has to dance dangerously, which it's about to do, he'll go and do it. So I think he's banked on it that he can run his king back to b8, and I figure he might be right. So the idea is that you get this check in, then trade the queen. Queen at d7 is then dangerous. The bishop's already pointing at a7. But I felt I didn't have all the material I needed. Unfortunately, I actually need another pawn here, I think, for pawn at d7. And if I play queen at d7, he goes king b8. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm missing a mate here. It looked close enough, and I was looking at the clock as well, and I figured I'll just go and defend here, take the safe option. And so fork the king and the bishop. And queen at e6 is an accurate move. That's now not relinquishing the weakness on g2. So I'm trying to patch up here, but honestly, I have nothing on his king now, and he's starting to just hammer me on the light squares. So maybe queen takes g4 was in order there, and then bring in the other bishop. One of these minor points. Black's just winning here. This is just game over. Yeah, it's only on the clock that I'd have a chance. I think queen takes g4 instead of bishop takes g4 was maybe a better chance. And here he's finishing very accurately. So the queen on h3, I've got to defend that. And bishop at f3, a nice move. He's just threatening queen at g2, queen at h1. If I play knight at g2, you can play queen takes g2, knight takes g2, knight at h3. So I'm out of defensive resources very quickly here. So yeah, again, just feeling like Luft is getting the better of the middle games. I thought I had chances after pawn at d7, but didn't convert the middle game as well as he did. And I was also up on time. So I felt where I was lacking at this stage was actually just some tenacity and, I had to shift focus to more the way I normally play, which is, get in those unfamiliar positions and then just play crazy house. And here I'm kind of wondering why preparation's been avoided and why I'm getting into these positions where my opponent is passive but he's just outplaying me. So it's more of a psychological thing here. And here I'm looking at if he plays e4, de, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, pawn at d6. I was wondering if he'd go that way. He went for knight h4 instead, and then his general plan became apparent that he's going for this f4 push. And, you know, white starts passive, but white just has a solid position. This is the kind of position that Luft likes to play. And then from here I felt he would try to gradually push. Get his bishops out, try to pin my knights, and just grind. So after d4, I'm not feeling great about the position. If bishop e6, he plays e5, he's just pushing me off the board slowly. So I went and took the 2 pawns for the piece, try to get a stake in the center on e4. And now I've just got knights that he can target. So right here, I was feeling like, wow, this is his dream kind of position. He's got all the bishops. He's going to force me to consume pieces to just put in passive positions to defend, and then just keep grinding. And so he's just playing natural development moves. You know, Luft is a very good builder in a position. Here I'm expecting bishop at h4 without a doubt, and I've had to put all my pieces on these squares. So now he'll just try to pick off material gradually. So he's looking at undermining the defense on e4, and he's playing it right here. Now c5 is not adequately covered. So again, knight at g5. So knight at g5 is putting his piece on an aggressive square, making me use another defensive piece before he goes and picks off a pawn. So now he's up. So I have to try to get active here, make some magic happen. And right now, the only thing I've got going for me is this dark squared diagonal. I've got a few weaknesses there. So this is my only play. I've got a solid king side, but I have to make something happen fast. Now some players might play pawn f2 without thinking and allow queen takes f4, but Luft will go, I'm going to hold on to every pawn here. So king h1 was not unexpected. And bishop at h4 is natural, just trying to get rid of the knight on g5, which is also going to be a useful piece in hand for me. Bishop at g1, solid in defense. And now I get to recover that knight on g5. So I'm very safe and solid here, but down on material. I'm basically down a queen for 2 pawns. And here maybe I should just play g5 straight away, or pawn at h3 even. And I lost my way a little bit. In these situations where you're just down a whole heap of material. Yeah, pawn at d2. Just helping him. The last 2 moves I played rook d8, pawn d2 has just helped him to get his queen active. I've now used up the pieces that I actually want to hit him with. Knight at g5, stopping me from playing g5, and I can't take the knight because of queen at h8. And now he's going to pick off another pawn, so he's basically just going to give me death by 1,000 cuts here. He's just going to go 1 pawn at a time, and eventually I'm going to run out of pieces. So not locking my prospects here. And here's where he went for it. And fortunately for me, the queen can actually cover quite well on d8. Perhaps he could have backed off the rook and just kept going with his slow plan, because now he's allowed me to get safe on the back. I'm now playing pawn at h3, which I should have played much earlier. And he's getting lower on the clock. So here I'm feeling, from a practical perspective, I now have some chances. Knight at e3 was also possible there. So now I'm safe at the back. I just want to trade pieces, and I'm feeling confident I'll take this one. But he absolutely outplayed me in the middle game. I think he just had to hold on a little longer with not trying to finish the game with queen takes d8. Those who watch my channel enough will know I use the terms you can't. Sometimes you can't blow up your opponent, and that was a time where I think he went for it just a little bit too early, and I got safe at the back and came back. Had he held the queen in hand, I probably couldn't liquidate his offensive as easily. Okay, so was relieved to at least play practically enough to win the position on the board there and get back to 2-all. I'm still finding my feet here. And Laughter's already picked up. If he plays knight f6, he's going to get the same position. So I thought, okay, we're heading to something mainstream here. And here I thought maybe he'd try bishop g4 or knight g4, some kind of different move order, and he played knight d4. And this one I'm not as familiar with, so it took me by surprise actually. I wasn't sure if it was knight g5 or knight takes d4 that I should play for. I'm still not sure what should be played for here, but I went for knight d4. And I think, this avoids a lot of the theoretical traps in theory with e4, e5, where normally black castles and white plays bishop g5, and there's a lot of lines that are in favour of white there. This just avoids theoretical lines, and it takes the position back to something balanced, which is what, at heart, the e4 or e5 opening should be. It's very symmetrical. So I figure I should push my knights forward. I've got all my pieces in the right spots. So knight g5, knight d5. And I like his next move here. I thought white should be pushing for an attack here. An idea is knight takes f6, queen f6, queen h5. You've got to be careful of things that can happen on f2. But I thought white should have the first go. And then he played knight at g4, which is great both defensively and offensively. So I can't play queen h5 now after knight f6. In fact, after knight f6, queen takes f6, and he's got 3 pieces pointing at my pawn on f2. So somehow he's been able to craft this in a way that he's actually getting the first bite. So now I'm looking at trying to make pawn at e7 work. I was more conscious of the clock here, that I'd spent enough time already. I figured knight takes d5 might be good for black, and picked love to play it. And I thought after knight f8, queen f8, bishop takes d5, maybe I'd have something to play for. What I didn't see was the move he found here after knight f8. I think the next move is brilliant. I've got knight f8, and straight away get hit with queen h4 here. So the danger here is pawn h7, rook at g8, and he has accurately found that he should allow that, and suddenly bishop f2 is happening, queen h2. If I play rook at h3, he gets bishop takes f2 check, king h1, knight at g3 check. I can't play rook takes g3 because queen h2 mates. If I play h takes g3, he plays queen takes h3 check, g takes h3, and rook at h2 is mate. So suddenly, I thought I was the one attacking here, and he's just very sharply turned it around. The queen also neatly covers the square on h8, so pawn at h7, king takes f8. He covers. And even if I play pawn h7, king f8, rook at g8, king e7, and make a queen on h8, which you would think defends h2, then he's got bishop takes f2, king h1, knight at g3 mate. So here I tried to find a resource with bishop g5 check, which is to just momentarily take the queen off h2, and then after h8 queen, I'm attacking on the back rank and covering myself from the knight at h3 check. And here's where, a novice player might back off, and in fact what the right thing for black to do here is call the bluff and keep attacking. Rook e8 doesn't look like it's got enough sting in it. He's now threatening mate with knight h3 check, king h1, knight at f2. And I'm going down on the clock here as well. So absolutely superb play from from Luft here. And so I'm down on the clock. He's got the attack. And he's found a nice mating combination. He's actually sacrificed quite a lot of pieces, but he's just got so much in hand. And the pawns all really hurt. So he's forcing mate here. And I'm feeling again like he's just outplaying me. And so I don't think, I don't think that people should take Luft's performance in the event so far as an indicator of his strength. He's very good. Apologies, here I actually had a crying child, so I had to stop the match for a little while. What I might do is I'll fast forward to where it is, but I was just going to say that, Luft has come very close in just about all his matches, except maybe 12-teen, who won 8-2 against him. I feel like he's just been a bit unfortunate and walked away with a couple draws where he could have taken a win. So yeah, I'm feeling he's deserving of more points in this event, and certainly here I'm feeling like I'm the lesser player. Yeah, so I just sort out my child and regather my thoughts. She just woke up and was coughing a little bit. Was a little bit under the weather. And when I came back for the second half, I already was in the state where I wasn't thinking about openings anymore. And I thought I'd approach this with a fresh mind and really just try to play move by move. Just try to play good crazy house. So I'm down 3-2 here. Already the thought enters the mind. Well, I'm in danger of losing this match. This is not a walk in the park. Feeling like the second best player here. And you've just got to, shake those thoughts. And we're playing into a similar opening here where he's won a few of them, but objectively it is a bit passive for white. So I'm still going to play for the big center, and I'm still cautious of this e4 push here, which is why I'm hesitating. I'm just having a look at a few lines if he wants to try to sack. But yeah, bishop d6 not as favourable because then he can play e4 and the queen is attacking that square. And maybe that's the point of white playing bishop d5 early, just to create that dark square weakness. So, as tempting as it looks to play bishop d6, in the end I decided against it. And so here he's going for a similar plan. He's going for knight h4, f4. So yeah, unlike your regular Crazy House K, Luft has really taken this into the strategic realm, and he's played it better than I have so far today. So here's preparing with king h1 to get off the dark square before potentially pushing f4. And instead he switched it up to e4. So he's just, I expect that if I play d4 he's going to play knight b1, knight d2, reroute slowly. He likes a good solid safe king. And here I'm feeling like I've just got to try to make a dent in his king side. Now, yeah, knight at h4 or knight at f4, they both look primitive. If I just allow white to live comfortably with that bishop pair sitting on c1 and e2, I'm never going to get in. He's going to bring his knight out slowly, and yeah, I've got to try to activate here. So getting the knight on f4 and taking with the pawn from e5 then allows me to develop my pieces, because otherwise they don't really have good squares to go to. So knight e5 here. And I'm expecting knight at f3, and then I was going to play knight eg4 and then try to make some dark square weaknesses. And Luft would have seen that. That's why he's deliberately played knight at c4 here. So, you may find this match a little more boring than the usual match, but I'm giving you all the strategic pointers that I'm confident Luft is seeing. He's played knight at c4 to keep his bishop with an eye on g4. He's trying to progress his pieces slowly without falling back on the king. I'm expecting bishop h3 here, so my bishop is placed ready to go onto d7 or c8. That's why you can see my bishop hovering there. And it seems like he didn't like it, so he went to try to grab the pawn on f4. I was tossed up whether I should move this pawn or not. It's going to be a good defender later. It's good for countering the pressure that white has on h5. But I decided that I needed to preserve my pieces. Okay, so basically black's got the dark squares, white has the light squares, and rather than play bishop at e7, I thought I'd play more actively, try to make something happen on g2 and h3. The bishop's also potentially trading off on c4, so knight takes g2 becomes an opportunity. So here's where, on principle as well, I'm just feeling like without calculating everything, you know, Luft likes to be safe and play strategic chess. I've played knight g2 to say, well, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable here. I expected he'd burn up a little bit of time, but it's actually not too bad either. If king g2, knight at h4, there's good play. I've got pawns forward, so now I'm a pawn up. Now bishop at f7 was going to run into knight at h6, so I defended this with the queen instead. Now e5 left the diagonal open, so good here to make white use a piece in a passive fashion. And I'm just going to try to attack the light squares. So my queen will hold the g5 pawn, the knight on e4 is pinned, and I'm starting to feel good about the position here. Yeah, I could have played queen h6 straight away, potentially. Bishop f1 I underestimated, because now I don't have bishop at f3, my queen's under attack as well. He now got rid of the pawn on h3, so I'm trying to starve him of material here. And we're both down to low time. So all these pawns, they all count. The ones you can put on g2 and h3 and slow down my attack. Now having said that, it's hard for him to attack me here as well. So this is about finishing accurately. I've got 20 seconds to 10, and he really started moving faster here. I should actually be moving faster as well. I'm thinking a little too much here. And here's where I thought queen g3 was just winning. Because if h takes g3, queen at h2, knight at g4, he found this nice resource, knight at h6. It prevents knight at g4. Unfortunately, he ran short on time and he assumed I was going to place a knight there. So yeah, I mean, I was very happy with that game, and that we both just were wall against wall in the middle game, and the only way to win those is to just have some faith in your ability and keep pushing. So yeah, he's played d5. I feel that I've played many games against him, playing e takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3, queen takes d4. I opted for something that would maybe be less familiar to him. Knight h6 is not a move I've seen before. That's a nice move. It's to get the knight on f5 without blocking the bishop on the c8 h3 diagonal. Bishop takes h6, g takes h6 is nothing special for white. In fact, I think that helps black. It opens the g file for rook g8. So knight h6, knight f5, nice maneuver. And here we are again. But I've in the second half just figuring, look, my normal way of play is to get into an unfamiliar position for both players and then just play. So my mind wasn't so much on what specific moves to play based on preparation. So this is unfamiliar to both of us already, and I'm figuring let's just keep playing moves. So you could play king g1 or king h1 here as well. Knight bc3 is a more active option. I'm basically just asking black to take the bishop, and if black doesn't take the bishop, I get knight takes e4, de, bishop takes e4. So it's just developing. Often black likes having that pawn on e4 to hit f3. Maybe he's thinking things like knight takes e5, pawn f3 here, but if I'm developed well enough, I should be okay. Now against bishop f5, I thought this was an opportunity to hit a loose piece. If he backs off the bishop, I play bishop e2. I'm getting more solid. There's no bishop at e4 fork because I've put the knight on c3, so I was glad that I'd done that. And then I thought the only annoying thing is he can pin me here with bishop at g6 now. And so while he sacked a piece for a pawn, he's really compact back at home, really solid. And if bishop at d3 gets pawn at e4, he's threatening bishop f5, queen f5, knight at h4 check. So I've covered it with another piece. And you know, he's recovering that piece, and he's still looking solid. He's put my king on a silly looking square on g2. So there, yeah, I decided to bite the bullet here, try to make some dark square weaknesses with that knight while giving it up. And here I should just preserve the queen. That's pretty straightforward. So while, you know, my king is a little bit worse than his, I've also got good defense. Got the bishop pair on h3 and e3 covering all the squares. He doesn't have that much in hand. I thought queen h4 was interesting here, maybe pawn at g3, pawn at f3, queen f3, bishop e4 was some kind of continuation. And here's where I just went aggressive mode. I said, well, if I start stepping back, he's just going to get a comfortable position. Let's not worry too much about the king on g2. Let's strike now. So I figured I'd have something on the dark squares, and as long as I keep a bishop watching the squares like f4 and h4, then my king will stay safe. So these sorts of moves are critical, like bishop at g5, you get to hit with tempo, you get to defend and attack at the same time. And yeah, I didn't like knight h7 check and winning the queen because I wouldn't have enough material to follow up with. So instead I'm just basically sitting on black here. Pawn at h6 is preparing pawn at g7, so I'm looking at knight c takes d5. That's my next resource. And my king is still relatively safe for now. So it also, this sort of move, pawn at h6, also prevents pawn at g4 type attacks, because then I can take his pawn and put pawn at g7 on myself. So knight at e8 is a nice move, that's defending g7. I can't take the knight because of queen takes g5. So I've got to go for pawn at g7. Now, it's at this point where I'm not making ground with any more diagonal pieces. In each move in Crazy House, you either decide whether it's greater value to invest a move on your king or your opponent's king. And king h1 is where I feel I actually gain a few tempo to be able to go and grab the queen here. I felt less comfortable about it while the king was still on g2. I've played f3 here to be very resourceful. I'm just now doing a few calculations to check if I'm okay. I didn't see a winning finish for him, but it looked dangerous. The trouble is he has to cover his king. And he's done it nicely here by, he's got a rook on the back rank, a rook on the h-file, a knight covering g7. He's covering all the mating attacks. And I didn't see how bishop f6 was going to continue, so I thought I should try to undermine the knight on f5. Knight g3 was only a check. It looked dangerous in the time scramble. I did see that it wasn't going to lead to anything fruitful. So bishop e3 is to grab another diagonal, and now black's attack is slowing down. And queen g4 is going to undermine all of his forward pieces. So I'll get to mop up pieces from here. So again, I was happy with how I played that match. I've come back into the second half after looking after my child with a different mindset. Just looking to play and you know, not putting so much focus on preparation, because I figured everything from here he's going to play his same preparation avoiding lines. And I think it's also different, like now I'm geared up here as well to play a strategic battle, because it looked like he was avoiding all of the sharp openings And so yeah, here Fianchetto thought I'd try something different as well. I felt that after bishop f5, he was playing bishop b5, so this way if I play g6, bishop b5 just goes straight to bishop d7. I don't waste the tempo with bishop f5. So yeah, I mean the brain is thinking about those sorts of small things here. And this is a solid position for both white and black. I thought he might try some kind of h4, h5 push potentially, but that might work better if his bishop is sitting outside on f4. Now here I felt he might push his pawn to e4, open up things. So yeah, got a fair flavour here that he was looking to start slow and then open up the positions on his terms. But I imagine for the viewers, they probably felt like they're watching a bit of a chess game rather than a crazy house game for much of this. Now knight at g4 was really just to try to sting him early on f2 or otherwise undermine e5 or defend h6. It's just an instinctive move hitting f2, e5, h6. Not really with a key plan in mind, but here I figure if he plays pawn at g5, I'm going to try to undermine his d4 pawn. So if knight d7, I want to play bishop takes d4 check first, then recapture the knight on d7. And he just found a nice move here. He just went knight takes d5. Just calling the bluff and rolling forward, not taking a moment to give me a chance to catch my breath. Maybe knight at g4 check was warranted here. It just gives a bit more defense at the back. And there's a critical difference. Now here if I play knight at g4 check, he can actually sacrifice his queen on g4 because I don't have h6 covered. So I was looking at queen g4, bishop g4, knight at h6, king h8, knight takes g4. He's got a safe king, I've got the queen in hand, but it's very hard to defend. So pawn at f6, brilliant move here. Now he doesn't have the pawn in hand to make me on g7. So I had some other ideas as well. You know, maybe even something like maybe he's moving the bishop e6, or I was just cycling through all sorts of moves here. It really put me in the spot. The last thing I realized was that I actually need to defend the h6 square from knight at h6 first. He could play fg, bishop takes g7, pawn at f6, but then I'd be able to play knight at g4 check again. So while the position looks quite sedate here, there's a lot of things that both of us are thinking about. Now here king h8 is just worse. Fg, bishop takes g7, pawn at f6. I've got to sack the queen. White's better, but at least I'm holding my dark squares at the back. Sticking a knight on to give more defense to h6. And then here the position got interesting. I at first overlooked re8, rook e8 because I thought the back rank would just be too weak. But he can't actually make the finishing blow, and he's got to be careful about putting the queen on d8 because if I get a queen in hand, I'm going to have a queen at f2 mate threat. So I'm actually quite happy with how I've defended here. White is certainly better, but I've not made it easy for him to get in. And here I'm looking at moves like bishop b7 to try to get another attacking piece on his light squares. Maybe I should have just gone through with it. We'll see if I actually did play it. Looks like I didn't. I might have got concerned about something I didn't need to get concerned about. I figured he'd play knight h6, and I figured I could still cover the g7 square. And this is going to get my bishop out. The problem is if I play bishop g4, he can move the king, and he's still got a queen at g7 mate threat. I'd have to defend it, then he can take my bishop on g4. So I actually have to defend first before playing this bishop g4 move. Now he's threatening to take queen takes h5, and here I'm trying to start generating my own attack, play on both sides of the board at once. This is now threatening knight g3 check, which could be a little bit deadly. Knight g3, king e1, rook takes e7. But most of all, I want to get rid of that pawn on h6. And my time started running short here. I don't know if I chose the best moves. This is to try to get knight h6. And bishop b5 is just a nice move. I'm in time trouble here. Tried to threaten knight g3 mate, but I missed queen at f8 check. So I was pretty disappointed with that. That I'd worked back to a position with some complications at least, and I'd not taken advantage of them. So now we're at 4 all, very tense here. This because there's only 10 games, the next match really determines who can actually play for a win. If you can guarantee a draw or not. Once you reach 5 points, you're at least guaranteed a tie. Now 12-teen sometimes plays this, but he plays b5. Unfortunately, I didn't just allow the bishop e3 pre-move to go through. I actually cancelled it because for a moment I thought he might play d5, and he did. And yeah, I've seen this played once or twice against me. In fact, queen g4. This is a classical chess standard spot for the queen, g4. But it's quite good in this opening as well. It just gives natural development, makes black a little bit passive by using up his pawn on g6 instead of a handy square like e4. I'm expecting h5 here. I've got some natural development moves, knight c3, bishop g5. There's some dark squares like d6, c7, b6 that are weaknesses to try to hit later on. So I'm feeling good about this position. I've got a castle king safe, good center. I've got a pawn in hand, he's got nothing in hand. And it's one of these semi-open positions where that extra pawn in hand can really count. So he's gone into the think tank again here, because it's not easy to mobilize the pieces. I'm also threatening bishop takes g6 here, just to basically mop up all the pawns on the king side. So I'm expecting him to play something like bishop e7, and then I was going to play queen f4 instantly. And then that makes it hard for him to bring his knight on g8 out to e7. So it's all still strategy here, new openings. And I thought he did really well to develop. Here bishop g6 is still a threat, fg, pawn at f7 is a threat. But everything I see, he sees. So knight h6 is a good move. Still develops, brings a knight out to f5, prevents bishop g6. And I kind of missed a shot here. I think I should have played pawn at d6 at this point. Make him bring his bishop back to f8, and then I'm threatening knight at c7 if I can trade a knight off. And I realise I missed my chance here because now pawn at d6, knight d6, ed, bishop takes d6 is fine for black. So just a minor point there, knight c3. And then I figured he'd be looking to play g5, undermine e5, so I preempted that with rook e1 to defend e5. It's an old Nimzowitsch principle to over-defend pieces that are in good spots, so e5 is one of those points. And those principles were playing Crazy House. Now here I don't know if he just blundered, if he just didn't see I had 3 pieces aimed at g5. He played knight d4 quickly, but here he's looking for bishop g5, queen g5, knight at f3 check. And here I'm looking strongly at knight takes f7, because I'm trying to avoid that tactic, bishop g5, and also get aggressive. And it wasn't until a little while that I saw the idea of pawn at g6 to really get in. I thought I would knock him away. Pawn at e3 looked counterintuitive, it's blocking off my own bishop. Pieces are in good squares. Pawn at g6 makes the pin available to take the knight on d4. And now I feel like white's better. Has tried to block the pin, but he's allowing knight at f4 check, and his light squares are weak on the king side. His dark squares are weak on the queen side as well, so he doesn't really have a good spot to run to. I thought, oh, if he allows that queen trade, I must have mate here. It's just so hard to against knight at f4, so I did find force mate here pretty quickly. This is possibly the cleanest match of the series. Queen at f7, queen e6 because his king has to block the bishop, and then the dark square weaknesses also play on the queen side. So at this stage, very relieved to be on 5-4, feeling good in how I played the last 4 games after I've come back from the distraction of my child crying. I actually thought, with the distraction I would come back and play worse, but it actually helped me in the end. It just got me away from thinking too much about the opening preparation and just playing Crazy House, which is what's required against All You Need Is Luft. He's such a class player. So again, we're getting into this line. I didn't like my position I got after Queen E8, so I went for something more active with Queen D6. And here, if E4 push, there's also DE, knight takes E4, queen takes D4. That pawn falls on D4. So Queen D6 is more active in the sense it hits the knight on E5, but it also potentially hits the pawn on D4. And that prevents his breaks. So again, I'm just looking to get near his king. Just a practical play here. Just make him uncomfortable on king side. He doesn't really have an easy break here. And here's where I like knight d7 because his one piece that's most forward is the one I need to try to undermine. So looking at another strategic game here, and I hope that me explaining this to the viewers also makes it a little less boring, because I think if you were watching this live, you'd think they're all chess games, but there's a lot of tactics which hold this together. There's a fair bit of thought strategically, and both of us, we played each other for over a decade probably on Fix. All You Need Is Luft is known as 11-teen on Fix. So we're pretty in stroke with each other. We can see what the other one sees. Here I've played c5. Really happy with how I play this. I'm now trying to undermine the dark squares, get some pawns in hand to make my knight on h4 more dangerous. I'm not giving away any weaknesses on the king side. And now he's played rook f2, preempting some attacks on the light squares. And here I'm still not sure how am I going to find a way in. And I really like that I've come up with this and then repeating the move c5. So I'm making the double pawn c6 and c7 useful assets by making some weaknesses on the dark squares, undermining the knight on e5, which looked like it was always going to stand. And so I've got him to trade off his knight on e5. I'm going to be able to use that knight to attack with. I expected pawn at e5. Maybe he was hoping for queen c7 or queen b6 because there was like a knight at a4 or knight at a6 kind of move, which helps him to win that pawn on c5. So I've been quite mindful of that, putting the queen on c6 on a light square so that he can't win a pawn, because that's actually what's critical in this position. That one pawn is what matters. Now I've got an open diagonal on his king. My bishop on d7 is well placed to hit h3. I've got some pieces in hand to support the knight on h4, and all the while my king has been kept safe. So, looking up 2 minutes to less than 1 minute on the clock, pawn at h3 is natural. And I didn't see a clean continuation of the g3, knight at f3. I was wondering here if I'm going to give up my 2 knights for the rook and if it's going to be wrong. Originally I saw maybe something like knight f3, takes, queen f3, pawn at g2. And I just felt maybe after something like king f2 I didn't have much. So I put the rook on g2 instead of the pawn. From here I was very happy with how resourceful I was with my material. The options were rook takes h2 to threaten pawn at g2 and rook h1 and come on the back rank. But I thought I would go for the piece trades. If he takes with the bishop, I end up getting a bishop at e2 check. But this way, bishop e5 becomes useful. If he blocks on e2, I've got bishop e2 check. He has to block on d3, and then that blocks his own bishop on e4. So now I get the queen and rook on the 7th. My king is still safe by a mile. And so yeah, just through some resourcefulness, I'm able to generate a very powerful attack. And you can see from the clock, yeah, this is all over. So, wow, I ended up taking the match 6-4. Was definitely a tale of two halves play there. Luft definitely had me out of the blocks. The first 5 games, I'd say he outplayed me in 4 of them. I won 1 on time. Second half was quite different. I think I came and leveled to fight in the middle game. We still had some very tough positions, and I just held on and pushed through. So behind the scenes, you won't be able to see it from just spectating, but there was a lot of, you could say, psychology entering that game. We had a few comments here at the end. He was saying, "Guess this means you're through." In fact, I'm not. I'm not guaranteed to be through just yet. There is one player who can still catch me, and that's Blitz Bullet. So let's go have a look at that. But yeah, my closing comments on that match: a very tough match. Really a tale of two halves, at least for me, in the way that I was thinking and playing. Very happy with how I've adapted during the match to come up with the win. I was looking in big trouble in the first half. So very relieved. That actually puts me on 5 out of 7. I've given myself every hope of making the final. Several people have already said you've made the final, but I'm going to bring up the actual website. Let's go to Crazy House World Championship home. Now, if Krosky was watching, this cross table will be updated already. It has, so he's put me on 5 points. Now, 12-10 has already won the candidates round with 5.5, and he still has a match to play. So let's have a look at this. So I've now played my full set of matches. The stats will now be updated. Okay, so I'm the first player to actually finish all matches. I've scored 5, finishing with +3. In terms of match percentage, I've won 71%. Game percentage 61%. So 43 out of 70 games in total. It's been a very tough field. I don't think I've seen anyone go 10-0 yet. So the worst unbalanced score was maybe 9-1. There's been a few 8-2s, but everyone who has played in this event has deserved to be in it. Comment on All You Need Is Luft. I mean, he's on 1.5 here. I really felt he deserved more points than that, the way he's been playing. Unfortunately, he's actually not walked away with 1 victory. He's had 3 losses and 3 draws so far. But look, he's lost 2 of them 4-6. He's had 3 lots of 5 all. And I thought he should have converted some of those 5 alls. He's deserving of more in the results. Yeah, I think it's just bad luck and not having the luck in some critical matches. So yeah, I don't think he should walk away disappointed with the way he's played. Perhaps only disappointed with the results. He's got 25 out of 60. That's not a bad scoring rate. So 12-10 has walked away with a win. The player who can still catch me here is Blitz Bullet. So Ekarf can only max out at 4. Juan at 3.5, Opperwesen can make 4.5, Master Tank can make 4, 12-10's already taken first position, Luft can only make 2.5, so Blitz Bullet can still make it to 5 out of 7. If he does make it to 5 out of 7, then we count on tiebreak. Now the tiebreak is actually the number of games won, so that's where they actually play a role. And here's where I'm grateful. I've won a few matches, 8-2. I won 8-2 against Juan, 8-2 against Ekarf, 7-3 against Opperwesen. There's some good wins. Blitz Bullet has won 1 match so far. He won 6-4. So, he is still within reach. 43 minus 18 is 25 points. So with 3 matches to go, he has a total of 30 left to score. if he can score more than 25 out of 30, he will take second place and he will play 12-team in the final. In this field, that is quite a tall order though to win 25 out of 30. So let's see. Well, you'd have to win 26 out of 30 to go ahead of me. So that's averaging more than 8 wins per match. He still has to play 12-team. So 12-team is the last match. 12-team has been on fire this series. He's only dropped half a point to me. He's won every other match, albeit some of them close. He's got Master Tan and Juanet. So, you know, it's not... We can't call who the final two are yet. I mean, Blitzbullet still has 3 matches to go. It's a long way, but mathematically, it's still possible. Other matches to go. I believe we've got All You Need Is Luft and Opperwesen potentially taking place tomorrow. I could check that up in the forum, I suppose. And I think we've got Opperwesen and ECAF maybe on Wednesday. Juanet was also looking for a match with ECAF or Blitzbullet this weekend, but I'm not sure if that's going ahead. So look, there's the standings at the moment. I'm done in the candidates. Closing words on this. I mean, very relieved to have taken 5 out of 7. I got off to a shaky start with only 1.5 out of 3. In this round robin, with the strength of the fields, that's 1 or 2 losses is enough to rule you out of the top 2. So thankfully I've come back with 3.5 out of 4 in the last 4 matches, and they've been tough matches, they've been good opponents. I've got some of the fans to thank for giving me a kick up the bum after round 3. I can see people have made comments about it, that I probably spent too much time talking in videos about how I need to take the game more seriously. But look, it's got me here. There's definitely been a change in motivation in the last 4 games. I'll be looking forward to seeing the remainder of the matches to close out the candidates. If Blitzbullet doesn't win enough games, then I'll be playing 12-team in the final, and that will be 60 matches of Crazy House at 3-0. I expect we'll do that in 3 lots of 20 matches on different days, potentially different weeks. We'll have to line that up. But look, let's not count the chickens before they're hatched. Blitzbullet can still contest for that position. So I'm going to close off the recording there. Thanks for joining. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.